Was I just roaming around in a drug frenzy of some kind?
Card! I tried to tell you. How to tell a story. A humorous story, an American development. Its difference from comic and witty stories. Okay, I do not claim I can tell a story as it ought to be told. I only claim to know how a story ought to be told, for I have been almost daily in the company of the most expert storytellers for many years. There are several kinds of stories, but only one difficult kind, the humorous. I will talk mainly about that one. The humorous story is American. The comic story is the English. The witty story is French. The humorous story depends for its effect upon the manner of the telling, the comic story, and the witty story upon the matter. The humorous story may spin out to great length, and may wander around as much as it pleases and arrive nowhere. In particular, the comic and witty stories must be brief, and end with a point. A point? A point. The humorous story bubbles gently. The others burst. The humorous story is strictly a work of art, high and delicate art, and only an artist can tell it. But no art is necessary in telling the comic and the witty story. Anybody can do it. The art of telling the humorous story, understand, I mean by word of mouth, not print, was created in America and has remained at home. The humorous story is told gravely. The teller does his best to conceal the fact that he even dimly suspects there is anything funny about it. But the teller of the comic story tells you beforehand that it is one of the funniest things you've ever heard, and tells it with eager delight, and is the first person to laugh when he gets through. And sometimes, if he has had good success, he is so glad and happy that he will repeat the nub of it and glance around from face to face, collecting applause, and then repeat it again. It is a pathetic thing to see. Very often, of course, the rambling and disjointed humorous story finishes with a nub, point, snapper, whatever you like to call it. Then the listener must be alert. For in many cases, the teller will divert attention from that nub by dropping in a carefully casual and indifferent way, with the pretense that he does not know it is a nub. Artemus Ward used this trick a good deal. Then, with a belated audience presently caught the joke, he would look up with innocent surprise, as if wondering what they had found to laugh at. Dan Setchell used it before him. Nye and Riley were others who use it today. But the teller of the comic story does not slur the nub. He shouts it at you every time. And when he prints it in English, England, France, Germany, and Italy, he italicizes it, puts some whooping exclamation points after it,
Don't give me some
and sometimes explains it in parentheses, all of which is very depressing. It makes one want to renounce joking and lead a better life. Let me set down an instance of the comic method, using an anecdote which has been popular all over the world for 12 or 1500 years. The teller puts it in this way. Then after a pause, he added, "Well, he told me it was his leg." Here the narrator bursts into explosion after explosion of thunderous forced laughter, repeating the nub from time to time, through his gasping and shrieking and suffocating.
I'm gonna write the sequel.
It only takes a minute and a half to tell that in the comic story form, and it isn't worth the telling
None of
after
this makes
all.
any goddamn sense!
Put it into the humorous story form, it takes 10 minutes. And it's about the funniest thing I've ever listened to. As James Whitcomb Riley tells it. He tells it in the character of a dull-witted old farmer who's just heard it for the first time and thinks it unspeakably funny and is trying to repeat it to his neighbor. But he can't remember it, so he goes at it all mixed up and wanders helplessly around and around, putting in tedious details that don't belong in the tale and only retarded, taking them out conscientiously and putting in others that are just as useless, making minor mistakes now and then stopping to correct them and explain how he came to make them, remembering things when he forgot to put them in the proper place and going back to put them in there, stopping his narrative a good while in order to try to recall the name of the soldier that was hurt, and finally remembering that the soldier's name was not mentioned, and remarking placidly that the name is... The teller is innocent and happy and pleased with himself, and has to stop every little while to hold himself in.
You and me, Mark.
And keep from laughing, all right. And does hold on. But his body quakes in a jelly-like way, with interior chuckles.
They'll never see
At
it
the end
coming.
of 10 minutes, the audience have laughed until they are exhausted, and the tears are running down their faces. The simplicity and innocence
You're done.
and
You're
and innocence and sincerity and unconsciousness of the old farmer are perfectly simulated, and the result is a performance which is thoroughly charming and delicious. This is art, and fine and beautiful, and only a master can compass it. But a machine could tell the other story. To string incongruities and absurdities together in a wandering and sometimes purposeless way, and seem innocently unaware that they are absurdities, is the basis of the American art. My position is correct. Another feature is the slurring of the point. A third is the dropping of a studied remark, apparently without knowing it, as if one were thinking aloud. The fourth and last is the pause. Artemis Waller. Can't see the goddamn book! Artemis Ward told in numbers 3 and 4 a good deal. He would begin to tell with great animation something which he seemed to think was wonderful, and lose confidence, and after an apparently absent-minded pause, added an incongruous remark in a soliloquizing way, and that was the remark intended to explode the mind. And it did.
Not falling down!
He would say eagerly, excitedly, I once knew a man in New Zealand who had a tooth in his head. Here his animation would die out. A silent, reflective pause would follow, and he would say dreamily, and as if to himself, and yet that man could beat a drum better than any man I ever saw. The pause is an exceedingly important feature in any kind of story, and a frequently recurring feature too. It is a dainty thing and delicate, and also uncertain and treacherous, for it must be exactly the right length, no more and no less, for it fails of its purpose and makes trouble. If the pause is too short, the impressive point is past, and the audience have had time to divine that surprise is intended, and then you can't surprise them, of course.
What the hell do you want? Are you from the government? This man is an American genius! I'm not writing anything at all! Where's that goddamn room service? You're so goddamn thirsty.